Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our MPF webinar series. This is our 11th installment after taking a few weeks off. And we're going to be talking about leadership and finding resilience and the leadership within you. This COVID keeps going on and on and on, and we're learning.
And on.
A lot of folks are starting to burn out a little bit.
Yeah.
So that had a couple of managing partners mention to us, that it's tough leading the troops, and maybe we should talk about that as a group. So that prompts today's program. Uri, how are you doing over there? You're in Israel.
I am. Thank you, John. I'm doing great. This is a program that's been long in coming, John. I think since March, we've been hearing sort of little, and it's become a marathon. So I'm excited to hear from our panelists today to both discuss this topic, maybe give some strength to some of our participants, because these are tough times. These are tough times.
Yeah.
They are, and leadership is being tested. That's for sure. People are looking to you for guidance and calm and encouragement, maybe some positivity from time to time. Mickey Maher in our upper right-hand corner. You're in San Diego. How are you today?
Doing well, thank you. We're expecting mid-90s here today. Unfortunately, the fire that's been burning in our south part of our county is well contained. Leah can confirm that. She's closer to it than I am. And the air quality isn't good, but we're fortunate to be with you, and thank you for having us.
Now, don't make us feel sorry for you for living in San Diego. It ain't working.
I earned it. I grew up in Ohio.
Yeah.
And Leah Nelson is with us. Leah is also from San Diego, California. She's participated in a prior webinar where we were talking about leadership and culture. So as we got into planning this, talking to John, Mickey, we thought it might make sense to bring Leah back to talk a little sanity into us and lend her perspective as an organizational coach, a leadership coach. So Leah, welcome back.
And thanks for having me. And yeah, I don't think there's any playbook on this one. So when we finally get past this, people will look back and say, we learned how to do that then in terms of leadership things.
And well, welcome. We're glad you're back. And John Fanburg joins us from New Jersey on the East Coast. And John, welcome. We're so glad you're here. And
thanks
how are things in the Garden State?
Well, thanks for having me. Greetings from New Jersey, to quote some other friends from Jersey here a little bit differently. And we're doing great, surviving. We've been at this in a pretty serious way since the middle of March. A lot of ebbs and flows. We're still in a shutdown mode. I could tell from the screen everybody else is working remotely too. At least that's the assumption. And it's become not the new normal, but the new. And every day's a little different. The stress factor is not knowing when this is going to end and when we're going to be able to experience the socialization that us human beings need and thrive on. But I look forward to the discussion today to share with you all what we're doing and how we're coping. And I'm anxious to hear from you folks as to how you're doing and how you're coping, because I think we're sharing all of this, and it really helps everybody to take note of other people's experiences and to learn from that. So I look forward to learning today.
Thank you, John, and we look forward to your sharing today as well. And really, both of you all willing to kind of open it up a little bit. And Uri and I run on a lot of these managing partner conference calls and roundtables, and it does at times become kind of like group therapy, and people find energy from one another. And so we're going to talk about connecting and finding peers and trying to stay sane and focused and healthy through all of this.
John, before we kick off our official program, I just had a question here. If somebody's having trouble with the sound, So can someone else who's participating, listening to this webinar, please chat us? Let me know that you hear the sound. Someone has chatted me that they can't hear our sound. So can we just do a sound check? If somebody who's on the webinar, we know you're out there. We see the numbers. There are people here. Okay, good. So already somebody responded. I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. I hear. Thank you. We're good. We're good. Okay, we are good to go, John. John, back to you.
Check, 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 check.
Check, check.
Urie's our sound check guy. So yeah, this technology is far from perfect, but we do our best. We use GoToWebinar. Zoom seems to be the popular choice. But let's go ahead and get started. And thank you very much. Urie, are we being, I can't tell here if our recording is going. Yep. Yes, we are. We're on. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Managing Partner webinar series. We've changed the name from Responding to the COVID Pandemic to the Law Firm of the Future. We took a little time off. Urie and I did some analytics on the first 10 programs, and here we are back in the saddle, and this is a really, really important topic. We kept hearing from managing partners how challenging it can be at times to stay motivated, positive, enthusiastic, lead the troops during some very challenging, unprecedented times. So welcome. We have a great panel today. Most of y'all know me, John Remsen. I've been running these managing partner programs for a good run, and we've been doing these webinar series this year because we can't do in-person events. So Urie and I got heads together and decided we'd introduce this webinar series. Most of you all know Urie. Urie runs managing partner groups in New York, New Jersey, and sells insurance on the side to law firms across the country. And Urie joins us from Israel. He's over there with his family for about 9 months. So thanks for connecting at this late hour. Good to be with you, my friend.
Par for the course.
Our panel, John Fanburg. John leads an 80-lawyer firm based in Roseland, New Jersey, offices in New York and in Palm Beach, Florida, my hometown, and co-chairs the healthcare practice group and the cannabis practice group. So it kind of matches with those Grateful Dead posters behind you, John. And I'm sure there's a few of us on the call, none of us on the panel, that might find some comfort in recreational drugs and alcohol. So John, so glad you're here.
Thank you for having me, and I know many of the people out there share my interests. So both from the resume and the music in the past and behind me, and look forward to participating today and sharing with you all our experiences in our law firm and what we see happening going forward. So thanks for having me, John and Urie.
And John, thank you. And how many Grateful Dead concerts have you been to?
Wow, you're really outing me here. The conservative estimate was over 300 while Jerry was alive.
Now that's a fan. Wow, I'm impressed.
And for the lawyers out there, which are many, I probably saw most of my shows when I was either in law school or a practicing lawyer.
Wow. I mean, that's very impressive, John.
That's impressive.
Thank you. Joining us as well is Mickey Maher. Mickey runs a 18-lawyer firm in San Diego, California, mostly a real estate boutique. And John's a transactional lawyer within real estate, involved in the San Diego Zoo and the Performing Arts Center out there. He's an Ohio guy who found his way to Southern California. So John, Mickey, you're living the life. Greetings. Thank you. You're here.
Thank you. Yeah, we've been out here 38, not quite 38 years, and appreciate the opportunity to participate. I know we bring a perspective of a smaller firm. I think it's great that John's on the panel, can bring the perspective of the larger firm, because we always see ourselves as a microcosm of what goes on in the larger firms. We're more as if John probably has a real estate practice group. We're that standalone, if you will. So appreciate the opportunity. Look forward to sharing the ideas, and thank you for having me.
Mickey, thank you. And I know you're going to introduce us to one of your colleagues, our sixth panelist, a little later in the show. So we look forward to meeting this guest. And last but certainly not is Leah Nelson. And as I mentioned, Leah has an interesting background. We met through a mutual client. Leah used to be in the Navy and a helicopter pilot. So she knows how to deal with tough personalities and tough situations, and does a lot of leadership coaching, leadership development. Her company is called Nelson Leadership. So Leah, glad you're back, and welcome to this afternoon's program.
Yes, thanks for having me. Also migrated from the East Coast out here. Once upon a time, better weather.
I'm a Floridian who moved to Atlanta, and we're kind of batting down the hatches for a little storm coming later today and tomorrow. We're supposed to have some rainy weather. So we got hurricanes, we got fires, we got pandemics, we got civil unrest. Wow, a lot going on right now. And, law firms are muddling through it. And so we'll take a look at what's working, what's not. Before we get started, I got to present a shameless plug. We're going to do a virtual MPF leadership conference, October 1st. First time we've tried to pull off a longer format, lots of panels, lots of polling, lots of data. We hope you'll consider registering. Normally we do an in-person meeting in the spring and then a symposium in the fall, and haven't been able to pull that off here in 2020. So check out our virtual conference. We sent out our first announcement today. Registration is open today, and we hope many of you will check it out and decide to register for that particular program. We'll get through our opening remarks. We'll share some survey results. When y'all registered, we asked you to answer a few questions. We'll then invite Mickey, John, Leah to share some perspectives. Give them a little 5-minute talk time, and then we'll dive into a group conversation. Also, when you registered, we asked you for some questions. Uri and I will be working from that. And Uri as well, why don't you share with people how they can type in questions as we go, if they have things come up and want us to present.
Sure, John, thank you. So in your panel on the right side, there's something called questions. If you can post your questions in that box, and we'll be monitoring them throughout. And then at the end of the program, towards the end of the program, when we have our group discussion, we'll try and put those questions together and present them to our panel. Feel free to put them on during the presentation, and I'll sort of aggregate them as we go. Thanks, John.
Beautiful. And Uri, thank you for keeping an eye on the questions. Organizing, if you ever presented a webinar like this, there's a lot going on, and you'll see me glancing over here and glancing there, just trying to keep the show rolling and hope the internet connection doesn't drop. We'll have some audience polling questions along the way. They're a lot of fun, and we'll bundle all of this up into a nice set of handout materials, get it to you tomorrow. Great benchmarking data to bring back to your firms, and let them know that we're not alone in all of this, and we can learn from other firms and how they're coping with change and what comes after this COVID cloud sort of floats away. So welcome everyone. I thought just to kick us off, we talk about Larry Richard frequently. In fact, he was our first panelist. Remember, Uri, back when we started this series in March, and Larry talks about the lawyer personality. And, these characteristics, he's done research for decades, tens of thousands of lawyers, and lawyers don't like change. And they're not the most resilient people in the world, but change is all around us, and resilience really, really important within the firm and within its leadership, you all as managing partners. There's some other statistics that just catch you. And this is done in the mid-2015, 2016, ABA, Hanley Hazleton. Times are pretty good. And they find some very disturbing statistics in terms of lawyers' psychological wellness. And take a look at that. That's triple any other profession, by the way. Doctors, accountants, triple. So with that in mind, Just to get a sense for our panel, who we got demographically on today's call, and our first polling question. Let me move over there. This is where I have to go to work and earn my paycheck, is running these polling questions. Let's start with how many lawyers are in your law firm? And has that launched yet? Uri, can you tell me?
No, it is not.
Hang on. Polls launch. There we go.
You got it. How many
Beautiful.
lawyers are with your firm?
We have
1 to 25.
117 registered for today's program, which is probably about average for these webinars. We've been going anywhere between 80 up to maybe 200, 250 people. And let me close that down so that our panel can get a sense of who we have on today's call. Quite a few smaller firms, but a good cross section on up to big law as well. And that NA are typically people who aren't in law firms. We'll get some consultants and folks like that involved in these programs. So that gives you a sense of who's on today's call. And 2 more polling questions. Y'all love the data, and then I'll shut up and let our panel go. When you signed up, we asked, how well's your firm adjusted to this? And looky here. Uri, this is consistent with what we've been seeing since the early scramble in March, April. Once people settled in, we were surprised at how well we pulled that off.
Yeah, John, I think we've always seen people, they always say it's better than expected.
But
I've always had the sense that that's the good news. The bad news is people thought the world was going to end in March and April. And I think we'll hear that from our panelists. Better than that, because we're shutting down, we're going home, we had a good run.
Right.
I'm kind of surprised by this, to be honest with you, that most firm leaders report consistently over time. You know, we're getting through this better than I thought we would. And then we asked as well, how are you doing personally over these past few months? And a remarkably resilient group, they say. Couple admit, I've kind of hit a wall here. And Uri, can you reflect on New York, New Jersey, I think, where, that part of the country is particularly hard hit. What say you about this data?
I think if there was another choice, a lot of bad days.
Yeah.
That would have been there too. It's been tough. It's been tough. There's been tough, and I think John Fanburg already said it's been a marathon tough one.
Right.
That's like one of those tough mutters, where they're throwing stuff at you during the race. It's been tough.
Well, for what it's worth, there's some polling data we're eager to share. And why don't we jump one more audience polling question? And Mickey, you asked us to include this one. And that is this. And then we'll turn it over to you. And that is, are you talking to your people to get their input to improve our culture, our collaboration as we work more and more remotely? Mickey, I thought this was a great question to include.
Thank you.
To kind of segue into your opening remarks. And I'm going to count it down. 4, 3, 2, 1. If you haven't voted, vote early, vote often. I don't know why I said that, but it seemed pretty timely. And here's what we got.
That's what we do in New Jersey.
And that's what we're supposed to do in North Carolina, I hear too. But yeah, that's who it looks like firm leaders are seeking input from. And Mickey, let me get your observation on that, and then roll into what you want to share with us to get our conversation rolling.
All right. Well, it's very encouraging to see those results, because one of the things that I think creates a lot of stress for managing partners or practice group leaders is they feel they have to shoulder this whole burden themselves, and getting others involved is a key to getting through this, maintaining your own sanity, if you will, and keeping others engaged helps fill your own resilience tank. I'll get to that in a minute. But before I get into the points there on the slide, the frame of reference for all of this, at least personally for me, is the role of a managing partner is really a servant leader. I measure my success by the success of other people in the firm. This is not it's my firm. It's their firm. I'm the steward of their involvement, their satisfaction, their career success. And I think that's a very important perspective to have to get through this in a way that works for everyone. But the stages of being faced with a threat, you've all heard of the stages of grief and so on, and when you're faced with loss. It's not terribly different when we're faced with a threat of this nature. You go through the first stage of fear and uncertainty, and you learn more about and gain a realization of what's going on. And that can result in either fear and uncertainty continuing to go up, or it can mitigate and go down. You go through a phase of shock and panic, leads to irrational behavior. We all remember the stories of hoarding toilet paper back in March. That's a good example of as people gained a deeper realization that this is really a shock to the entire societal system. Anyway, then you move into the hero phase. Tough to do in a pandemic because some people see every other person as a potential threat to their own personal health. Not, terribly different from, okay, we just had a tornado or a hurricane come through or a fire. We're all going to band together and help each other. It's much more difficult when we're dealing with matters of public health of this nature. Then you get into the honeymoon phase. Oh, I can start to see how things are going to improve and be a little better. And things are going to get back to normal. But if those thoughts and observations don't materialize, you fall into a pattern of disillusionment. And I think, Leah, you're here in San Diego too. I think we're seeing that now with the new 4-tier system statewide of what constraints are put on local operations based on different criteria in 4 groups. San Diego is now pinging back and forth. We've enjoyed a measure of freedom. San Diego State University opened up. They've had a number of cases on campus, unfortunately. So now San Diego's tipping back into more constraints. That's going to start affecting the psyche of the community. So, and when you get to the far end of it, the last stage is reconstruction, recovering. That's probably not until we've got a vaccine and really have a good handle on this being well in the rearview mirror. So those are the stages of being faced with a threat. So what do you do? How do you not lose hope through all of this? You've got to build resilience. Not, easily said, tough to do. And you've got 2 ways, 2 universes here. You've got the organizational resilience of your firm. In a nutshell, you've got to candidly assess the situation. Sorry, I'm going to sound like John Remsen here. Talk to your clients. Talk to your clients. They're the ones who are going to tell you what's keeping them up at night. What they see in the way of demand for your services over the next few months. With that information, you can plan, and then you roll that plan out to your group transparently. This is where we are. This is where we expect to be. That's going to affect compensation, employment, how we get back in the office, all of those things. So candidate assessment, planning, and transparency. But to do that for your firm and the role that we sit in as managing partners, you've got to have a measure of personal resilience. And there's no magic formula that's going to work universally for everybody. The only possible, I'm going to tilt here a little bit because
let's meet the mystery panelist.
Down there that's Rafiki. He's part of my personal, building personal resilience, and I'm sure others have pets and companions and so on that help with that. But the personal resilience has different factors. You've got to calm your emotional regulation. If you've got negative thoughts, they're going to spiral. Think about hitting your hand with a hammer, hitting your thumb with a hammer. That first whack really hurts, but then every little tap, I mean, you're here and you're bouncing up higher and higher just with little bits of harm. You've got to have clarity for problem solving. Again, this sounds cliche, but you've got to eat right. You've got to exercise. Right. You've got to get good sleep. Turn off the Netflix, turn off your phone, and go to bed. You've got to get good sleep to be able to exercise judgment. Optimism plays a key role in this. That's going to give you the energy and enthusiasm to keep going. That's what motivates you to shut off Netflix and go to bed, because you've got that responsibility. Finding happiness in every little thing. We're fortunate, we live in a suburban area. We've got birds and lizards and, a little more carnivorous coyotes and snakes running around, but just taking time to observe that and watch can be very helpful. Again, going to sound a little cliche, take the deep breath periodically. Make yourself do that every so often. Think of times when you've helped someone else or accomplishments. That's going to help build that resilience tank. You have to think of your personal resilience as a tank or a reservoir. If it's up here, you're doing well. If you let it get down here, it takes grand gestures to get it back up here, and that's very tough to do. But if you're up here and you take a little bit of a hit, you take a break and get it back up there, you maintain that personal resilience at a level that it can really serve you well. Other steps, because I know, John, when we were organizing this, you said, people are going to want to hear more than just eat right and do yoga. There's more to it than that. And that's where I come back to these concepts of servant leadership. Engage others in the firms. That's what drove that question at the front end. I saw some posts on the listserv not long ago where practice group leaders or other younger lawyers in the firm are abdicating responsibilities. Get them engaged with each other, with the younger lawyers. Get those groups together, enlist others to help. Don't try to do it all yourself. We formed a committee to help connections among the lawyers in our firm. I know I can't do all this myself and meet the demands of the clients and keep an eye on the financials and so on. It's got to be a team effort, and enlisting those folks will not only help them build their careers and skills, but it takes that pressure off of you. So other things that we can talk about when we get in the conversation are things like, take a virtual walk around the office. When we're all in the office, you're off, management by walking around. You're poking your head in the office and saying hello to people. Just randomly call people and say, hey, I haven't talked to you in a while. How you doing? Checking in. You may come away with nuggets from those conversations that you can apply more broadly to help the health of the firm. So thank you for the opportunity to introduce, and look forward to the discussion.
Mickey, and thank you. And I think, hopefully we're creating those connections as well among managing partners. You're not alone, and reaching out, asking for help, involving others, really, really important. So thanks
we have a small group here in San Diego of small firms. The managing partners get together periodically and kick ideas around. We find that very helpful. Not to usurp what you're doing, John.
I was going to say, watch those antitrust issues.
Oh no, absolutely.
That replace the managing partner forum.
Right. No question.
John, thank you so much. Mickey, thank you so much. Appreciate those opening remarks. And now let's turn to John Fanburg, larger firm, 80 lawyers in New Jersey. And John, what say you to just sort of kick us off and what you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, I'm gonna break it into two components. One is the law firm messaging communication, what we think has worked, and then I'll kind of focus more on me as the managing partner of the law firm. But to start off, to echo a comment of Mickey's, and I was happy he said this, is I view my role as managing partners. I work for the partners. They don't work for me. And I'm elected, and we have annual elections. And for good or bad, I've been elected annually for close to 15 years. Maybe no one wants the job, but I think when you treat everybody as equals at the partner level, it goes a long way when you listen and hear what they have to say. Our law firm in 2003 had been merged into a large regional Philadelphia-based firm with about 350 lawyers. And in 2009, as a result of the economic crash, then the firm went out of business, and then we kind of just went back to the way we were because we maintain our office. With that, going through that rough time, it taught the entire law firm a lot of lessons. It taught everybody, again, all the lawyers and the staff, how resilient we could be if we're committed towards each other. And I think firms and or businesses that go through tough times and emerge from that will be better lawyers and better business people at being the law, because you don't want a captain of a ship who's never sailed in rough seas. And clients want that too. So if you've gone through a very difficult time and you've emerged, you're much more confident that you can get through the next crisis. And that's what a lot of people have been saying currently in this pandemic. In fact, coincidentally, I just noticed the date. It was 6 months ago today that I met with everybody and said, today is our last day in the office because we are shutting down. The New Jersey, New York area, as you may recall, was severely hit with hospitalizations and deaths. And we have a significant health law practice that I chair. So a lot of our clients were in the middle of this crisis. So we saw this firsthand of people we knew were getting sick, people we knew who were dying from this. So the level of seriousness was significant. Communicating to the partners, we began to do the Zoom meetings. I began to, every couple of weeks on the weekends, I would call partners to see how they're doing. They thought I was calling about collections and AR. I was calling about how they're feeling. When we were meeting as an executive committee remotely, I share almost everything with the partners that we do and our thought process. You have to be positive. We'll get through this. We have no choice. We have to. But because of our history, we've demonstrated we can do those things. But let's talk about the facts. And partners, we're always encouraged to give feedback. We're not lecturing. We want to hear what they have to say. The attorneys, we began to do the same thing, having Zoom calls just to kind of take everybody's temperature and tell them what's going on in the law firm. And I did the same thing with the staff. And when I was an associate, I thought all the partners did at partner meetings was talk about the associates. When I became a partner, I realized we didn't talk about the associates at all. But because of that weird dynamic, the lawyers and staff create stories of what they think is happening. And so I make it a point to tell everybody what's actually happening, what we're thinking about doing. I also share with them a lot of the financial information of the firm because it's going to get published anyway. Why keep it a secret? In the middle of all of this, we had the George Floyd situation. So that reverberated throughout the country and clearly in our business. So we began to talk about that. And I got mixed feedback as to whether or not we should be talking about it, taking a position. We reinstituted our diversity and inclusion committee in response. And I think we added another dimension. It's not just about practicing the law. We are citizens of the community and we take it seriously. Let me hit to the next slide because I don't want to overstep my time and talk about me. So for the first couple of weeks, because the weather wasn't great, I was in my home office, and I'm very fortunate. I don't have young kids. I got to worry about school. I could look out a window, got the technology all set up, but I realized there was 10 days I never left the compound here, and it got to me. And I would say probably I had more bad days than good. And as this has evolved, and I'm very fortunate. No one should be sympathetic. But I told my partners and all the staff and the lawyers 2 weeks ago, I have to start going back to the office to work. Then they thought, well, is this John's passive aggressive way to encourage people to go back to the office when we're technically not supposed to? And I said, fair question, but it's not. I can no longer take the monotony of walking downstairs, sitting here for 8 hours, eating dinner, going to sleep, and doing it again. And I think that's helped me. And by sharing that experience and being candid with my colleagues, lawyers and staff, et cetera, they began to share they were feeling the same way, but were afraid to express it. And they were appreciative that I wasn't afraid to do that. And people are going to the office, again, not because I am, but they need to change their environment because they are, it's impacting them. And I think that type of communication is still good. In terms of the unpredictable future, many lawyers are talking about, gee, do we, because of technology, do we really need the real estate footprint? Should we just work remotely for now on? Should we just hold off until the spring, like a lot of other non-law businesses? My personal view, which may or may not be shared with some or all of you, is, and maybe it's because I'm 63 years old, I believe the practice of law is a team sport. I don't believe you can create a law firm culture working remotely. I don't think you can have the collaboration you need to be effective as a lawyer working remotely. I don't believe you can train and mentor people remotely. You need to be in the same room. Does it have to be 5, 7, 6 days a week, 8 hours a day? Probably not. And who knows what the next phase of all of this will look like. But I don't want us to go to be a virtual law firm. We're still discussing that, and I wouldn't even say debating. It's a discussion point because we're still in the middle of this unknown situation, not knowing when it will end and how it will end. But the thing is, so long as you're candid with everybody, you don't bullshit them, you tell them what you're thinking, what you want to do, and you solicit input, we'll all get through this. We will survive.
John, thank you. Heartfelt. Yeah, I like it too. First time we've had applause from the panel.
Thank you. Thank you, Mick.
Congratulations. Leah, I'm going to switch that question. I'm looking at the time, and let's go to you now. And have you work with a lot of law firms, a lot of firm leaders. Bring us your perspective.
Yeah, I would say I put this: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. This has become a marathon, right? And my observation of working with leaders has been, for the first 4 months, everybody kind of muscled up and kind of held their breath and pushed through and used all their typical coping strategies. For some people, that meant isolating because they could do it for that amount of time. But now we're seeing people who that's not working anymore. So if you are feeling tired, if you are feeling like it takes more energy to just do normal life right now, you are not alone. That's a normal feeling. And exhaustion in some way, even mentally, just because, to your comment, John, I found myself I would be where I used to go to clients, I'd be stuck in my office for 8 hours and, with bathroom breaks. And so you have to do something different, and a feeling of exhaustion, at least mentally, is normal. So I just want to normalize that thought. I would boil it down to self-leadership and leading others. And for the self-leadership, I want to echo a lot of things that Mickey said. You put your own oxygen mask on first. You are very important to your firm. And if you burn out, there's a big swath of damage there. So take care of yourself, but most importantly, stay connected. And that's, if I could have you hear just a couple things today, staying connected is so important. It gets us out of catastrophic thinking. It helps us prevent those statistics about depression and anxiety and manage those. And that is really, connection is the piece that's going to buffer people. So if your default, which I think many attorneys in my experience, their default is to isolate and do it on their own, that's not going to work anymore. And so love what you guys have said about Mickey putting that group together. That is the people that I have been around that are doing the best right now are the most well-connected people. And I'm talking about empathy, sharing what's really going on, like you, John, sharing that with your folks, where there's a sense of being real. It's the principle of identification. People can relate. And there's 3 types of empathy. There's cognitive empathy, where we think we're being empathetic. There's affective empathy, where we feel like we're being empathetic. But really what you want is empathetic concern, where we really put ourselves in the shoes of the other person and ask what it's like to be them. And as leaders, we need to do that so well. More is caught than is taught. If you can go to the next slide. Leading others. Being a great attorney doesn't mean you're necessarily a great leader. People go to law school and they learn how to be attorneys. Leadership is something different. And this is a time where it's unprecedented. And so really talking about leadership, talking about like just the way, John, you're being very transparent with your people, modeling that, having those conversations, giving people an opportunity to be part of the conversation is teaching them leadership. Operate with responsiveness, understanding, validation, and care. Just being task oriented right now is not going to get it done. And we're all saying that same thing. Using emotional intelligence, it's hard to use emotional intelligence if you're not connected and you have an empty tank. For any of you who have run a race, at the end of the race, if you didn't prepare well throughout the race, you bonk, and you don't want your people to bonk right now. So the last thing I would say is we need, as humans, we all need, for lasting change, we need psychological safety that comes with the empathy and the connection, a for you stance, and novelty. Now's the time to change it up. So getting your people connected with a leadership group, getting them connected with a coach, having roundtable discussions or situational. We have like the perfect case study going on right now. What do we do? But 3 things people need: connection, control, and competence. I've mentioned connection. When you find people are going into catastrophic thinking, slow them down, put the brakes on by having them make 2 lists. One are things they do have control over, and one of the things they don't have any control over. Be empathetic about what you don't have control over, and then let's get to work. When we feel heard, we are 30% more likely to solve our own problems. That's a neuroscience statistic. So help people feel heard so they can get back to work. And the last one is we need to feel some sense of competence. So getting us back to work, getting people doing what they're good at in the practice of law.
Communication, connection, we're hearing a lot of that. And I'm hoping we talk about concrete ways. I mean, we're not just talking about connecting on LinkedIn.
No, I'm talking about
We're talking about picking up the phone and having a meaningful, heartfelt conversation.
And I would push back a little bit, John, on your comment about virtually. I run leadership groups, and right now we are stuck with virtually. And if they are done well, you can really connect and have that empathy come through online. Is it the same? Absolutely not as in person. But I would say default to what we have right now, which is Zoom and all these platforms, and ask people how they're doing. Yes, fill the tank back up, because even though we haven't changed anything, people get off and they feel like, okay, I know what's my next thing to do. I know I'm going to get through today. You restore some hope, and more importantly, you get people's brains back online. So I always talk about, if this is your brain and your prefrontal cortex, this is your amygdala. When people go into the catastrophic thinking and lose hope and they find themselves wandering, they're stuck in their amygdala. Feeling heard and connecting with somebody gets their brains back online so they can get back to work.
Mickey, you articulated it very well yesterday when we were having our rehearsal about, keeping that fuel tank topped off. Don't wait till you run out of gas and you're driving on fumes to go, recharge. So I'm looking for an image on recharging, and I thought, well,
I love that.
and, you know, originally I was-
Obviously, you found a picture of Yuri's car.
well, I noticed that it's, you know, it's electric. Just, you know, initially I had a car at the gas pump, and I said, no, let's move on to the new way we're going to be getting around. This polling question, let me pause here, and then we'll bring it to the group. And Uri, I'll turn things over to you to moderate. And I guess the question here is, what are you doing from this list, folks on the call, to top off the tank? What are you doing on a regular basis? Check all that apply.
Come here.
And for our friend John Fanburg, I put recreational.
Come here. Come here, Fiki.
I'm sure there's other things that folks do to kind of decompress and recharge. But these were some of the ones that seemed to surface in a lot of the reading and the types of things that I've observed a lot of lawyers do to recharge. So looks like we've got about 3/4 of you in, 4, 5,
Hey, John.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What do you think is going to be the #1 answer, Leah?
I'm going to pick exercise, but can I make a quick comment?
Of course.
So there's what we call passive recovery and active recovery. Passive recovery is like binging out on Netflix, eating too much, drinking too much. Active recovery has shown to be fill your tank and keep it full for longer. And it's things where you're connected to somebody, moving your body, petting the dog, connected to people. But something that's active, not you vegging out on a couch, turning on a movie and checking out. So even though it feels good in the moment, and I totally get it that it feels like it takes energy to do that active recovery, in the long run, your tank will fill up more full and stay full longer if you do the active recovery.
And Mickey, look at all those pet lovers. Number 2. So you're not alone. That's great.
No, you didn't. Well, you.
So with that, let me move into our kind of group discussion. And Uri, you've been monitoring questions, and why don't you take us into our 15 minutes or so, where we'll open things up to the panel.
Sure. Yes. Well, John, thank you. And thanks to our panelists so far. We've got a number of good questions, both good questions at registration. Welcome back, Mickey. And some good questions that came in the staff.
I picked the dog up and he pushed on something. So sorry about that.
That's all right. You're back perfectly. So we got a couple of good questions that came through during the session. You can keep them coming, and I'll try and aggregate them and get them into our discussion. We did, however, have one unusual, which is I have just a no question, just a big thank you for sharing your thoughts, John. So John Fanburg, you got two firsts today. We got applause and we got the thank you in the question. So there you go. So I'm going to start with a not easy question. We have a lot of easier questions, but I think we're just going to go right for this one, which is everybody's already alluded to, and heck, we all know how challenging the last couple months have been. How have you handled in your firms bad behavior, particularly among your partners, during the crisis? Did that happen? If you don't want to say it happened at your firm, do you have a friend where that happened, either John or Mickey?
I confess I have not had that happen. I've been very fortunate, and our group is, and maybe we're transactional lawyers. We have the objective of getting the deal done, getting through things, getting to closing. So I'm fortunate in that respect. I have not had any bad behavior among partners.
How would you have handled it, Mickey, if that happened?
I think you just got to have one-on-one conversations. I mean, you praise in public and have those other conversations in private. It would be probably a Zoom format, not something you'd want to handle over the phone. You'd have to set up that Zoom one-on-one and be very candid and clear about what the behavior was. You know, when you do that, here's how it affects others or how it affects the client relationship, and here's how we need it to change for the future.
John?
My experience is the same as Mickey's. We haven't had any bad behavior. So I'm fortunate. I mean, in the many years of being a managing partner, I've had issues with certain partners and have had to deal with that effectively. I have heard from colleagues about bad behavior. And I think from what I recall, Yuri was one of our, I guess, Wednesday morning meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was because of the financial, the people were scared financially. What's going to happen to our business? What's going to happen to our law firm? I need the draw. And so it sounded like the partners in the managing partners of those firms needed to calm everybody down, and we're working very hard to do that. But fortunately, we've all the partners have been doing what I would have hoped them to do, and haven't had that experience.
Leah, you want in?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I always say, notice the event or the circumstance, share the impact. Your conversations are going to go much farther if you can share it. You're not just slapping somebody on a hand, it's sharing the impact to the others. That is what will produce the change.
And you have to do it promptly. That's not something you could say, oh, I'll get to that next week or the week after. You've got to do it right away.
Absolutely.
We've talked about.
If I can add, I come from the perspective that there's 14 sides to every story.
Of course.
So when I've had to go to a partner, my presentation has been, hey, I wasn't there. I don't know what happened. This is what I heard. Tell me what happened here. And probably 9 times out of 10, the partner admits to the bad behavior and it tries to explain it, not excuse it, explain it. And then without me even saying anything, within 2 minutes, I'll call it so-and-so and apologize. So a lot of it is how you handle it. But people, Leah, you've kind of said it, people react to stress and the pandemic in different ways. And it would probably be more normal for people to have bad days or episodes.
Right.
We've talked about the situation quite a lot. I wonder if the panel can give examples of dealing with the stress personally and as a firm leader, specifically remote. There's a lot of firms that are already remote, considering remote, thinking the regular flu is going to put them into remote. How have you used the technology, and how are you thinking about when you frame your messaging over remote technology?
Well, I'm not really sure what you mean, but I think one of the things I try to add some levity to the law firm, we always have a summer event or barbecue, which we couldn't do. So I had everybody, and we always hand out annual T-shirts of different design marking the year. And so I had everybody wear one of their vintage T-shirts, send in a picture, and then we did a slideshow the next day for people. And to Mickey, most of the pictures had their pets and family members with them, in order of priority and importance, of course. And we also have a custom in our law firm is that when it's the day before a long holiday, you can wear jeans if you contribute $5 or $10 to that month's or week's charity. And so when we got to Memorial Day, it was the first one of those we didn't have. So we did a virtual jean day, again with pictures, and we raised probably more than we usually raise when they're in the office. So we've used the technology to maintain the bonding and the culture, and it wasn't just about work. It was, getting outside of their day-to-day crazy stressful head.
Right.
That's one of the things we've done as well. We started with virtual happy hours, an idea that we imported from one of our partners' son's firm in San Francisco. That started with, then it evolved into one of our younger folks found an online game platform called Kahoot. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but we now have every other week a Kahoot game, and everybody contributes questions. So depending on who's contributing, you may get a lot of pop culture questions, you may get a lot of history questions, presidential trivia, but always mixed in there are little questions about, which partner has an uncle after whom a ship in the Navy is named.
Right.
So you get some internal trivia going as well, and that helps cement things because that springboards into stories that people share about other folks in the firm.
Right.
So we're also planning. I'll let the cat out of the bag. We're thinking about how to put together a virtual Halloween party, and that'll be lawyers, staff, kids, families. We haven't figured that out yet, but that's in the works.
I think a pet costume party. Yeah, kind of brings it all together.
We've done similar things, and so just like tomorrow we have an anniversary party, and we had things delivered to everybody who's normally coming to that, and we're going to celebrate online together. I think also just the importance of sharing, like if you have a sort of benign but real story that you as an individual and a leader can share, it gives people permission to feel more normal, knowing they're not the only one, and it gives them permission to talk about things as well.
This is a question that came in a couple of different ways. How do you share optimism? How do you create optimism and motivate your team? Motivate both the leadership. Some people ask about leadership, but broadly in your firm, is there a method? Do you do it every Monday? How do you keep people going?
Nelson's chomping at the bit for that one.
Well, the Stockdale
Leah, you go first on this one.
Stockdale principle, never confuse the seriousness of the situation with the belief that you will ultimately prevail. So I think holding both the good and the bad, the reality is we are here. This is hard. It doesn't seem to be going away. It's not going away as fast as everybody wanted it to. And I'm a big proponent of the word and we can link arms and get through this together. We can take this huge thing that feels like this ginormous nebulous problem. We can break it down into smaller pieces, and we can tackle those pieces.
That's a good approach. I mean, what I've done is I've tried to send out a weekly message. Sometimes I miss a week. Sometimes I don't get it out until Tuesday or Wednesday, but always try to hit on those themes. Look, we've got, this is all being compounded. We're 6 months into this. We've got fires going on in the South County. We've got political unrest and violence in the cities. We've got the bitterness of the presidential campaign and local races going on. All of that is taking everybody's resilience tank down a bit.
Yes.
So thank you for being part of this. We're all in the boat. The goal is to get everybody to the other side of the river. We're all going to get a bit wet, some more wet than others, but we're going to get there. That's a variation on that theme. And writing those and reflecting on those helps me fill my personal resilience tank.
Absolutely.
There's a message that's been going out weekly, Mickey, pretty much.
Weekly, sometimes I've missed them, but I've made a point. I say, I'm sorry I'm missing this week, but I'm not sending these out for the sake of sending them out. I'm sending them out when I have something meaningful to communicate. We try to share celebrations. Oh, this deal just closed. This person's got a new client, all those sorts of things. Share that as part of the messages. There's clients out there still doing things.
John?
Mute. Again, being candid in the beginning as to what we were all facing together and recognizing that this status and situation is a temporary one. I was proven correctly because when doctors, again, my practice area is healthcare, and they were basically put out of business the middle of March till the beginning of June. And when they came roaring back, we became very busy again. And I was able to say, you know, see, this is temporary. We're back. We're busy. And, you know, who's got, you know, capacity so I can spread it around. We had a couple big transactions. With regard to my meetings with the staff and lawyers last week, I gave them the financial update on how the firm is doing and through August in terms of billings and collections, comparing it to where we were last year. We're off. We're not off a lot. We still have several months to go, and I never know how the year is going to be until December 31st, frankly. But they need to know we're still in business, and we're going to be in business because they look at it. The staff looks at things very differently than the owners of the business. Some of them are extremely dedicated to the law firm. Others, this is a means to an end. And what I really learned from my last conversation about the challenges, the issue with the schools is so critical and is such a priority. Understandably, these people can't go back to work if they've got to monitor their kids on video screens for school. So I'm kind of glad we're still working remotely while the parents of young kids are still figuring out how to manage this, because I can't believe the stress I would have put on them inadvertently had I said, okay, it's time to come back to work and you deal with the kids situation. Here, they're able to deal with that. So everybody has a different motivating point and process and all this, and you got to figure out how to get the best out of everybody, because not everybody's the same. Everybody reacts and responds to things differently. So it's hard. I've got 176 employees. I'm sure I'm not, you know, communicating with everybody perfectly, and that's when you got to rely on our partners, because as you said, Mickey, I can't do it all alone. I've got to use them effectively to help spread the message and make the connection and stay in contact. And again, I'm lucky because of our past experience. My partners get it, and they're stepping up. And you know, we're fortunate with regard to the type of law firm we have.
Right.
Marie,
Thank you, John.
I'm going to chime in.
It's at the top of the hour here. Any quick go around? And unfortunately, it's amazing how the time flies by. Mickey, you want to say something?
No, go ahead, please.
No, you go. And I'm just wrap it up and a few announcements, and then we'll call it a day.
I'll just thank you, John, for your thoughts, and Leah as well. You've provided me with some insight. I've taken some notes, so I'm taking some things away from this presentation, as well as hopefully contributed something meaningful that others found worthy to jot down. And I think, John, you're going to provide our contact information afterwards. So if there's questions out there, don't hesitate to contact us.
Contact info, and then in the handouts as well, you can find us there. John Fanburg, anything to close us out you would
well, I learned a lot today as well, and you know, kind of forcing me to think about what to talk about today gave me a chance to reflect on a lot of different things, which I found helpful to go forward. And I just really look forward to seeing everybody in person at some point, sooner as opposed to later. And mostly be safe and stay healthy.
Yeah.
John, thank you. Leah?
I would say maintain a stance of curiosity. It's the same storm, but we're all in different boats. And if you can keep that stance of curiosity, I think you're going to invite people to join you on the journey and make it to the other side. Thanks for having me.
On the road to Terrapin.
Right?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mickey.
The connections, the wellness, the recharge, and really important to retaining that resilience. Uri Gutfreund?
Good stuff. You know, I'm always struck by our panelists' comments, and today was no different. Appreciate the honest insight. You know, one of the things that you learn at the Managing Partner Forum is you're not alone, and hearing other managing partners really express the same challenges you've had and some of their successes is really helpful for everyone. So thanks again to our panelists. It's been excellent today.
Uri, thank you as well. John, Mickey, Leah, good to see you all, and thank you so much for joining us and for the time you put into preparing your comments today. We're trying to be part of this and help establish the connectivity and the recharge. And so check out our virtual conference and show up at our webinars. Uri and I are going to get back in the saddle and run out the end of the year. We're going to talk about problematic partners. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff. So stay tuned. We're trying to be a resource for you. Here's our contact information. And as well, we will provide this in the handout materials we'll be circulating tomorrow. I think any of our panel would be happy to chat with you offline directly if you'd like to continue the conversations. Uri, one last parting shot from you, and then we'll end our time together.
Keep giving us feedback. These programs get better every time. So at the end of today's program, a survey will pop up for simple questions. What you like, what you didn't like, and future topics. Please let us know, and we'll look forward to seeing you again in 2 weeks' time.
Absolutely. Give us your feedback. We really tune into that. Thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. Have a great afternoon, and stay healthy, stay safe. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye, everybody.